Here's a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe about Yud Shvat. This speech was given when, I'll tell you when it was given. It was given in excuse me, 1950. It was given in 1950, the year that the previous Rebbe passed away. Yud Shvat. Okay, I have to understand how this works, but that's what it is. Okay. Something is okay. Here we go. Now, what is Yud Shvat? Yud Shvat is the day that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away in 1950. And Yud Shvat. Shvat is one of the 12 months of the Jewish year. And Yud Shvat is the 10th day of that month. He passed away. And 1 year later, exactly on that date, commemorating that date, the Hasidim chose his successor, his son-in-law, to be the Rebbe. And that's our Rebbe. That's our Rebbe. Okay, so if so, this day, this is the Rebbe, Lubavitcher. So if so, this day is a double important day. Now, when we consider that the Jewish people are here in order to educate the whole entire world and all of mankind, so we realize that this is not just a private, religious Jewish item, or even, Chabad thing. This is relevant to the whole entire world, because the whole purpose of Chabad and the whole purpose of Judaism, the whole purpose of the world is to bring Moshiach. And Moshiach is going to educate the whole world, all mankind, how good they are, how good that they're made in the image of God. What does that mean? And how good the world is. When God made the world, it was very good, and how close God is. And that's what the Rebbes are doing. The Rebbes, every Rebbe of Chabad is the Mashiach of the generation. So we're talking about here the changing of the guard, the changing of the kings, whatever it is. Or maybe it's not even changing anything, just changing names, changing gears. Oh, okay. Sufficient. This is all printed out. Someone took the trouble to print a lot of books of Chabad download, which is a tremendous blessing, and may that whoever did that be blessed over and over again, because it's a whole, not only the books of Chabad, but also there's a whole thing that's called Hebrew books. You can look it up over here. Hebrew books, right? And in Hebrew books, you get almost all the books in Judaism. Not all the books, but I mean thousands. And one of them he did that he put in the books of Chabad. So here we go. Sufficient the Takanas. Among the customs that the Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, is from the takana of the customs, or the whatever is the conduct that the Rebbe said that we should do, is talk that every day we should learn the portion of the Chumash with Rashi. Right now, the Torah is divided up into books, and those books are divided up into sections that we read, and every week we read another section. So it ends up we finish the Torah in 1 year. We've been doing this since it was given, 3,300 years, nonstop. The Jews have been learning the Torah, reading it in public. One chapter. Some people they finish it every 2 years, 3 years. Whenever the custom is, we finish it 1 year, every year, and every week there's a different Torah portion, and every day, and every day that Torah portion, the weekly Torah portion, every day we read 1/7. It's divided up into 7 portions. Every weekly portion is divided up into 7, and those are the 7 people that we call up to the Torah on Shabbat. So it says we should read the Torah portion with the commentary of Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki. Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, who lived about, 900 years ago, almost 1,000 years ago he lived. And he is the foremost commentator on the Torah. He is the foremost commentator of the Torah. even though the Torah was given in such a way that it is open to a big gamut of a commentary. Their commentary within the bounds of Judaism, and you can't just say anything that you want to. I mean, you can say anything that you want to, but it doesn't mean that it's right. But there's great commentators on the Torah that they discover new interpretations, new ideas in the Torah, and they talk one with the other to see if they're true or not. And a lot of times you see the fastest says that every aspect of the Torah has 70 different explanations. Shivim pun in the Torah, at least. Okay, and you can always find new things and new ideas and new and this, and it's very interesting, very alive. Okay, so one of the things he said that we should learn Chumash every day with the explanation of Rashi. Rashi is Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki from the weekly portion. So this is relevant to, and it's also relevant to that day which you are in. Excuse me. Good. So what's relevant over here? 1 second. There we go. So therefore, the Rebbe therefore, he said, as the word, he gave this the saying, used the saying that the first Rebbe of Chabad also used, and that is that you have to live with the times. What does it mean, live with the times? That was the big enemy of Judaism, was you have to live with the times. You have to be modern. You have to do according to what Napoleon says, or what listen to the philosophers of the day and everything. That was the big enemy of Judaism. You have to know the Torah is eternal, and we have to live according to the Torah, which is the ancient wisdom. That's our wisdom. So the Rebbe said, no, you have to live with the times. You have to live with the times. What does it mean, live with the times? Namely, as from their the parsha, from the weekly Torah portion that we read every day, that we have to take a teaching from what is that. So it's a good thing. You want to read the newspaper, but they say that you read the newspapers that the majority of it is lies and the rest of it is not true. Even the date of the newspaper is not true. They say that the date, they put a date, the news of this date, and really it's the news from yesterday, but they made it up. Okay, so, but if you read the Torah is always true. And the Torah is always timely. It's what's happening right now. But you have to use your mind a little bit in order to make it fit in. So we'll see. This week's Torah portion, when the passing away of the Rebbe was from the Sheni Shlishi, was talking about the Jewish people going out of Egypt and crossing over Yam Suf. By us, it's not going to be that way. By us, it's going to be next week when the Jewish people are going to take the Pesach offering, the Pesach offering. This Parshas Bo. Although by them, it was Parshas Bashalach. So Bashalach. It's basically the same thing. But and then when the Rebbe passed away, the previous Rebbe passed away, that was in Parshas Bashalach when the Jews went over Yam Suf. Kriyas Yam Suf. They went over Yam Suf. How do they call it? The Red Sea. They went over the Red Sea, Yam Suf. And it's really supposed to be the Reed Sea. Suf means reeds. Okay. So they went over the sea split. There was one of the biggest miracles. Like the rabbis say, Kasha Kriyas Yam Suf. If something is difficult, it's hard, like the splitting of the sea. Kriyas Yam Suf is was the preparation for the giving of the Torah, and also for the future redemption. It's hard to believe nowadays that, with all this anti-Semitism going on in the world, that the Jews were really the people that God split the sea for them. For the Jews. He put the Jews in Egypt. They had basically no merits whatsoever. Right? The Jews, they were slaves for all this time. He took them and split the sea for them. Splitting the sea is one of the biggest miracles of all time. This is something you don't see every day, right? I don't think there's ever been anything even vaguely recorded that a sea split. And not only that, if you read what it says, that the fact of the matter is, it's not like the movie. The sea did not just split into one big divide. It's split into 12 different channels, it says. Even from above them, it was like 10, 12 tunnels. Talking about tunnels now, tunnels is a big deal. 12 tunnels, and each tribe went into it through his own tunnel. Okay, however it was, even if you want to take the Cecil B. DeMille, whatever his movie, it was only one tunnel. That's big enough miracle, right? It says that the wall is still like a wall on the right and the left. How did it happen? This thing of the splitting of the sea. Well, I mean, they just got over there and God split the sea, right? This is not so fast. We are told in the Parshas Shlishi, was men learned, Morgan, which we're learning in the Torah, the third reading, is after the Elula, after the Rebbe's passing away, there was a Jew. There was one Jew. All the Jews were standing there. They didn't know what to do. There was one Jew, and his name was Nachshon ben Aminadav. Nachshon ben Aminadav. He became the head of the tribe of Yehuda afterwards. Was hat sich Moser Nefesh, that he sacrificed himself on a reingesprungen, and he jumped into the sea. Und durch them, by means of that, had Paul given, he made Tamshacha in Allah, Eden, and all the other Jews, and they also went into the sea. The sea split, and they went in through the sea. What was the thing? The Jews got up to the sea, and it was a sea. They couldn't go in. They didn't have any boats or anything like that. And the Egyptians were coming from the back, and there was desert on the right side, desert on the left side, and the Egyptians could have easily gotten them. So they didn't know what to do. We'll see. The Jews they went crazy. They thought we're lost. We're lost. Thus was Nachshon ben Aminadav, and Nachshon ben Aminadav, he said, "I'm jumping in. I'm going to receive the Torah. That's it. I'm going in. That's good enough." 1 second. Yisrael name Moshiach Shiur Ken. Okay, Beseder. So it says, "Thus was Nachshon ben Aminadav, the fact that this fellow Nachshon, the son of Aminadav, Nachshon, he jumped into the sea. This was in Yener site in that time, un Yener site in that time, un in Yener land laga, and in that situation, as an Inyan was she is nit given in ganzen ois gehalten, in a way which is not a normal situation. Es is doch gewusst, it's known, the Shita, as the Yidden Farman Torah, the Jews before the giving of the Torah had what's this? Okay. They had a law from Bnei Noach. The Jews were not yet considered to be Jews. Und is a pluga, there's an argument in the Rishonim and the Achronim and the interpreters of the Torah, like in the days of Rashi and those people for the last 1,000 years, if a non-Jew is obligated to give his life in order to do his commandments. An argument, right? A non-Jew is not allowed to worship idols, not allowed to do it. But if someone comes to a non-Jew, puts a gun to his head, and says, if you don't bow down to the idol, I'm going to kill you, does he have to give his life or not? If someone comes to a Jew and does it, technically you're supposed to give your life. It's forbidden to do idolatry. But for a non-Jew, there's an argument if you're supposed to, if you're not supposed to. It's a question if it's a bad thing to the degree that he has to give his life or not. Okay, here we have Nachshon ben Aminadav, and he's giving his life, he's risking his life for what? We'll see. Okay, so Nachshon ben Aminadav, all the Jewish people, they have the law of non-Jews. They're not officially Jews yet, before the giving of the Torah. When God made the covenant with them, they're not officially Jews. Same thing with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? They were the beginnings of the Jewish people, but the true birth of the Jewish people was when they received the Torah. Okay, we'll see. As if we say, as Bnei Noach, that non-Jews are not obligated to risk their lives in order to do their commandments, as Torah it's forbidden for them to give their life. Why? Because everyone agrees that a non-Jew is not allowed to kill and is not allowed to kill himself. It's forbidden for a non-Jew. That's where do we get the sentence? Look over there by Noah. God says, man is made in the image of God, therefore you cannot kill a person. That's what it says. It's forbidden to kill. It's forbidden to kill, and it's forbidden to kill yourself. So therefore, how is it via Zoe? How is it? Can it come out? As Zoe, like it says, I'm sorry, as dimcham l'nafshechem edrosh. It says that if you take your own life, God said, then you will be punished in heaven, wherever. So it comes out that Nachshon ben Nadav, he shouldn't have jumped into the sea, according to that opinion. And even according to that opinion, which say that Jews, before giving of the Torah, they were and they weren't exactly Gentiles, right? That from the time of Abraham, Jews were still considered to be Jews. Well, the Jews went into Egypt as Jews. So there's two opinions. One says that Jews, before giving the Torah, that they weren't 100% Jews, they were like non-Jews. And if so, it was forbidden for them to give their lives in order to do the commandments. In other words, they could have just gone back to Egypt. They didn't have to go there. This is only l'chumra, those people that say that Jews were called Jews, they had the laws, they had to do the laws before the giving of the Torah as well. Even from Abraham, they're called Jews. This is only in relation to, they're called Jews to be more strict on themselves, but not to give their lives for commandments. So however it is, whether you say that Jews had the law of Jews, or the Jews did not have the law of Jews, nevertheless, there was no place in the Torah for Nachshon to jump in the sea, and to risk his life in order to, nor Nachshon, but Nachshon, he knew, as Van der Rebbe, that if God said, he told the Jews that when they took them out of Egypt, as Hoter Gezok, God said, but Mitzrayim, Tavdun et Elokim al Harazeh. Nachshon knew that the reason the Jews were going from Egypt was to go to Mount Sinai. They weren't just free from Egypt, they were free to receive the Torah. Thus, says this means, as from Mitzrayim, that from Egypt, Darf mem gein zum Berg Sinai, you have to go to the Mount Sinai, Mekabel sein the Torah, and receive the Torah. The Mele is in nit gewen nogea, it didn't make any difference to him, to Nachshon, was as is mitten, what happens in the middle. Nachshon knew one thing, we're going to receive the Torah. Erweist, he knew, as men darf nit zum, as me gein zum Berg, that we're going to Mount Sinai. That's what he knew. And then God said it. Oibes is the inmitten, if there is in the way a big sea, hot as to him, kind shaychus net. It doesn't make any difference to me. There's a sea. The only way to get to the sea is to keep walking, right? There's no boats. There's no one. I'm going to walk. Darf springen. He had to jump into the sea and gehen weiter, and just to continue biz until he came to Mount Sinai, until he received the Torah. Like it said in the Midrash in Pirkei the Rabbeinu Kodesh. Excuse me. It says that a Midrash of their parsha behind this week's Torah portion is Shayach zum Yom Elul, which is relevant to the day of the passing away of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, as Zion, that there are 1 too far. Demo, there is by Jews given kochot. The Jews had, I'm sorry, that the Jews had kitot. That when the Jews reached Yam Suf, so the Egyptians were behind them, and the sea was raging. Sea was in front of them, and the desert was on both sides. So they didn't know what to do. So what do Jews do when there's problems, difficulties? Politics. Each one has their own political, party. One group said, angehalten as nitna rosh v'neshuva. Let's go back to Egypt. We get the point. Let's go back to Egypt. Another group said, Kita said, is gehalten as men milchama. Let's make war. We'll fight. We'll go down fighting. Come on, let's not be sissies. They'll kill us, but at least we'll get a couple of them. We'll go down with them. A third group said, no, as gehalten men zaloifen in Midbar. Another one said, let's run away into the desert, to go to the side. There's different opinions about this. Mer Nid, the Ayin Kita, there was one group said as men, Meg, other men, Darfgan, and Yom, that we can or we must go straight into the sea. Is doch be'emes mitzad dem cheshbon, according to this, that achrei rabin lahatos, that there's a law in Judaism, you have to go after the majority, hadoch Nachshon, so Nachshon, even according to his logical seichel, should gekent zu zwei Fillen oif men meg in Yam. 1/4 of the Jewish people said jump in the sea. 3/4 said don't jump in the sea. Either go back to Egypt, or let's run away, or let's fight. So if so, he was outnumbered 3-1. 75% of the Jews said it's not good to jump in the sea. So he should have gone at least after the majority. But Nachshon had nit gewollt a Ryan Gain in kein Shachlataria. Nachshon didn't make any calculations. Eret Gavust, he knew as their Eibishter that God said that we have to go and to Mount Sinai and receive the Torah. Had Nachshon geteinet, so Nachshon said, as to dar Grechen, them zeal, that I guess to count the numbers is nit kein weg. This is not the way zil keren kein Mitzrayim, that we're going to leave Egypt. No, I'm sorry. He said, listen, there's no way that I'm going to go back. I'm sorry, to Egypt. There's no way I'm going to have war with the Egyptians. We're not going to win, or to run away into the desert. God didn't indicate we should do any of those things. To them is their mer nit vi ein weg. He said that Nachshon had in his mind there's only one thing to do. Und das is go straight. The mela, so therefore, darf men springen, you have to spring into the sea. Was durch them, which by means of this, ver men mit a trot, with one a little bit nearer to Mount Sinai. This, by the way, I mean, maybe we didn't bring this up, but maybe we should. And there's this thing now in the news that the boys in 770, they dug a tunnel, and they're digging these tunnels, and they're going to go there. They're smuggling babies out and drugs. And they got the weapons of war. They got atom bombs down there. Who knows what they have with the drugs? And the fact of the matter is that the media, there's enough anti-Semitism as it is, so they really jumped on this. And what really happened over there? What really happened is, and I only want to take 2 minutes to talk about this, but I think it's very relevant to what's going on over here. And the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, said 30 years ago, 35 years ago, that they should enlarge in 770. But they didn't do it. Then there came Gimel Tammuz, and the Rebbe, for all apparent purposes, he passed away. So the Rebbe's not here. The Rebbe can't tell people what to do. They can't tell what people to do. So they did nothing. They did nothing. They didn't want to build. And then they fell into the hands of the people who really want Moshiach, and then they're going crazy, which is what the Rebbe said you should do, to be crazy about Moshiach in every moment of your life. You're supposed to be thinking about talking. But there was Jews that were more normal. They said, listen, that was a good idea. You know, for a year and a half, everybody in Chabad said, everyone said, everybody said, one little small group of a few people, but everybody said that the Rebbe is the Moshiach and the Rebbe is going to get better. The Rebbe had a stroke, he was going to get better. But it didn't turn out that way. It turned out that there was Gimel Tammuz. So there's some people said nothing changed. What the Rebbe wants is the same. And other people said everything changed. Now we're the bosses. So nothing went, that's it. So everything was against. They couldn't get any permits, and they were supposed to enlarge in 770. It's very, very cramped, tremendously cramped. And it's very popular, and it's getting more and more popular. And so a few of the young boys there just couldn't take it anymore. And I mean, in general, these fellows, they can't take almost anything. anyway, they have so combine all this together, right? The how do you say it? The wrong person in the wrong place and all this. So they put them together. They said, listen, we have to jump into the sea. We have to be like Nachshon ben Anida. We can't listen to the majority. We can't listen to what everybody's saying. We have to do what the Rebbe said. The Rebbe said to make it bigger, right? Just like God said, go and receive the Torah. We have to make it bigger. We don't have the permission. Everybody's against us. We're going to do it anyway. Okay, was it foolish? Of course it was foolish. Is being foolish a bad thing? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. We'll learn in a couple of minutes that it's not. Here we see Nachshon ben Amidav, that he was a fool, and he did a foolish thing, and nevertheless, that's what split the sea. And this was also the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, all of religious Judaism was, no one held like him. No one held. And even more, he was in communist Russia, where there was a danger to his life every moment if he continued in this way of education. And he sent his pupils out to educate children, and they got caught and they got killed. And everyone that just came in contact with the Rebbe had the same, was inspired with the same insane self-sacrifice for the goal of bringing Moshiach and changing the world that the previous Rebbe had. And so this crazy, and that's what the Rebbe's talking about this. Nachshon ben Amidav, he was crazy. He was not normal. He went against the majority. He wasn't commanded to do what it was. It could have been that it was even forbidden for him to do what he did. But he knew what he had to do. Okay, this is, of course, a very touching thing, a touchy thing. Everybody can just do what they want to. Okay, so therefore you have to learn the speeches of the Rebbe. That's what we're trying to do. And then you finally come to your own conclusion what to do, right? There are things that are right and wrong that the Rebbe would never agree that you should hate somebody or destroy something or whatever. On the other hand, the Rebbe clearly said that they should build 770. With the course of the previous Rebbe, the God clearly said that we have to do everything we can to bring Moshiach. No matter what Stalin says, no matter what everybody says, no matter, take the easy road and be quiet and keep a low profile. When the Jews were on Mount receiving the Torah, this is a teaching for all of our generations. This is how a Joe, and then this is with the service of the previous Rebbe, Bala Elula, was a line which he alone, he himself, had arbet, he worked in holy service, mit mesirus nefesh, with total self-sacrifice. Or had das euch übergegeben, he also gave over to those which walked in, which followed in his way. Bald immediately from the beginning of his leadership, he began in a holy service with mesirus nefesh. As soon as he became Rebbe, even before, he was a self-sacrificing Jew. He didn't think about himself whatsoever, and he risked his life time and time again. And those were the times when, killing people was, no problem. Killing someone was just no. There was in Russia, Rusland in Russia, this was the time when the Yevsektia had when the Yevsektia was very powerful. Yevsektia were Jews that were, a lot of them had come from religious families, some of them even came from Chabad families, and they became murderers. They became part of the Russian communist movement to clean Russia from any opposition, anything other than communism. And this was called the Yevsektia. Their job was Jews. They were going to eradicate Judaism from the Jews. And they were the ones that arrested the Rebbe, and they sentenced him to death, and miraculously got out of their clutches. These were Jews against Jews. Und anzunehmen demelt auf die Nesios, that the Rebbe, when this was, the Rebbe began to be Rebbe, the previous Rebbe in 1920. 1920, that was when communism was really starting to take hold, right? All the revolutions in 1917 and this, that was just sort of, who was going to, evicting the Tsar's influence and all these other parties. But little by little, they consolidated their power. And in the 20s, that's when the Yevsektia really started to get strong. And in that time that the previous Rebbe was spreading out Torah and the commandments and Penimit Torah, is thus given. This was the opposite from the whole country. This is exactly the opposite of the whole movement of the country, the opposite of nature. Men had oiv them, there had to be total self-sacrifice for this. It was insane what the Rebbe was doing. Right? It was not just a thing that was against the law. It was against life. They would kill people. They killed people for doing what the Rebbe did. When demonstrates nefesh, and that self-sacrifice, he also demanded from those people who went with him and which he took in his work. Hagam, even though according to the Shulchan Aruch, we cannot find any law that we should demanding from another person that he should sacrifice his life. Or if all the mitzvahs and all the other commandments we find that we can demand by another person to do, right? To put on tefillin, to keep Shabbos, which this goes in the commandment of Hocheach Techecha Tamisecha. If you see a Jew that's not doing the commandments, as you have to try to convince him to do. But to convince a Jew to risk his life, there's no such law. And that's what the previous Rebbe did. Wenn is das Gedar gewen men fehlt nit as men hat a shlichus. When is this? If you don't feel that you have a mission from God, then you don't have to sacrifice yourself or to convince others. Andrish, but it's different. The Shas is a derech shechina medaberes v'tol gorono. But if a person that he feels that the shechina, God's presence, is speaking from his mouth, that's a previous Rebbe. So we know this is what God wants. That's the idea of the Rebbe, and that's the idea of Moshiach, to make everybody change their nature to the point of even self-sacrifice. As we'll talk about more tomorrow, self-sacrifice. That's the main point. The main spirit of Chabad. I remember I used to be in Bnei Brak. I lived in Bnei Brak, and I lived there for 4 years. And I used to take these little sichos of the Rebbe, these little pamphlets, which one little speech, a little essay of the Rebbe, and go around to the different synagogues and put them. There was about 20 synagogues that I went to, and I would put like 10 in each synagogue, and people really liked it. But there was a whole one group that made it their job to hate Chabad. Let's not talk about things which are painful. They don't exist anymore. It's already gone. But they had a leader that spoke just terrible. Anyway, and they would go around after me without my knowledge, and they would take these sichos. And they would take them and throw them away. So I found out that they were throwing them away. So how did I get out of it? How did I do it? I had to run around to these places and put these sichot, these little pamphlets, right before Shabbat, so that they didn't have time to go around to all these different places. They were already in there. So in order to do that, I had to really run, and especially in the summer days. It was really running was hot outside, and in the winter days, I would. And the winter days, it was very short. The days were very short, so I didn't have much time. So I had to go. So I didn't have much time, so I had to do this. Okay, so I remember there was one synagogue that I would go to, which was like in the end of the whole thing, and there was one guy sitting there. People had not yet come. One guy sitting there. It was like a yeki shul, a nice guy sitting there. I would come in, and he was maybe the janitor of the place. He was like the sexton. He would look at me, and I was all sweating and running, and he would say, Chabad, Mesiras Nefesh, Chabad, self-sacrifice, every week. Chabad, self-sacrifice, Chabad. But that's the whole thing of Chabad. The whole thing of Chabad is not thinking about yourself, doing what's right because it's right. Okay, now let's go and do the Bati Lagani.
What neighbor?